Serious, what is the scariest thing to happen to you when you've been home alone? Well, my house was sort of out farther away from town. We had neighbors, but they were few and far between. There was a hiking trail opening across the street from our driveway, which was very long and can't be seen from the trail. My room had a large window facing out to the driveway. Anyway, I was home alone, cleaning my room, and singing We Are the Champions extremely loudly, as well as playing it on my TV. Looked up, and suddenly see a manpower walking up my driveway very quickly. It's obvious no one is home but me, since there aren't any cars in the driveway. So I ran to the front door, which was open, because it was hot AF outside, and locked it, and closed and locked my window. Turns out bro friend did not like that. I called 911 because he was still approaching my house and I was getting scared by his demeanor, and while on the phone with the 911 operator, he started banging on my front window by the door and then the door itself. He tried kicking in the door and tried breaking the window. I went and hid in my mum's closet because it locked from the inside only with a knife until the cops showed up. By the time they showed up he was gone, and there were hand and shoes prints all over the door and front window, and some handprints on my bedroom window. They found him about an hour later walking up and down my street. He told them that he heard my pretty singing voice and just wanted to say hi. He was also drunk, but admitted to being sober at the time of the incident and started drinking after I rejected him. He also told them that he planned to come in and have some fun with me after he found that I was home alone. And that he was waiting for nighttime to come back. So yeah. Had a lot of nightmares about that one. Man tried to break in because he heard me singing, couldn't get in, gave up, then went and got drunk. Police found and arrested him an hour later. Then he admitted to them that he wanted to ape me. The lights turned off all at once while I was in the kitchen. It was pitch black. I heard the door open. For some reason, instead of thinking power outage, my brain went to someone has cut the power and is coming to kill me. I grabbed the landline, the knife, and was crouched behind the kitchen counter hearing steps come through the house, trying to breathe as quietly as possible. Then I hear my mom go, "Hello? Anyone home?" The power went out by chance at the exact moment she came in the door. That would have been an awkward hospital trip. I was probably 9 years old, my sister was 6. We had a babysitter who was 12, so alone in the sense that no adults were around. Jackass that I was, I squirted bug spray on my sister and she chased me in retaliation. I ran through some French glass doors to get away from her. She went for the knob and missed. Her arm went through one of the glass panes. She cut herself so deep you could see muscle, tendons, and bone. It looked like a shittily cut piece of raw meat, since that's basically what it was. The babysitter held a piece of cloth on my sister's arm until my mom came home, called her right away, and took my sister to the ER. She didn't hit an artery, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was scary as duck at the time. Got 60 stitches out of it. The scariest thing that happened to me, I didn't know actually happened until the following day. I lived in an apartment in a not so good part of a dangerous city with my boyfriend who worked nights. One day our friend came over and called me to let him in our building in a hurry. Turns out this guy had been crouched by my car in the parking lot and had approached our friend and closed in on him. My friend pulled out a weapon and the guy ran off. Upstairs I noticed that the guy had left a green bundle near my car and assumed he would be back for it. It made me uncomfortable, so I suggested we call the cops. Not 5 minutes after a cop showed up to ask where the guy had gone, SWAT, K9, and about 10 cars showed up and swarmed our area. Turns out the guy had escaped from county the night before with 2 other guys. He was in jail for assault with a deadly weapon and repeated domestic violence offenses. He had climbed the fence in the yard behind our building, where our landlord kept his camper, broken into the camper, and stayed there the night before. He had stolen all the electronics out of it as well as a butcher knife and was trying to break into my car before my friend showed up. I had been alone the night before and had taken my dog down to the yard to go to the bathroom. I noticed that the barbed wire on the top of the fence had fallen down and my dog was nervous. But I brushed it off. The guy had been in the camper watching me the whole time and I never knew it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get even more awesome content. Come on, it just takes 1 second. For me, I was 12 years old and my dad was at his girlfriend's house. I went into my room to take a shower. I always put a chair under the door handle in my room because it didn't have a lock. My grandma loved giving me porcelain dolls and she decorated my room with shelves that had porcelain dolls on them. All of the dolls were on their shelves before I got into the shower. When I exited my bathroom, one of the porcelain dolls was 10 feet across the room, face down on the ground. This doll must have flown across the room to have landed where it did. Also, the doll was not broken. Needless to say, my grandma was sad that all of the dolls were packed up and put in the attic for safekeeping. My grandparents paid me to house sit for them and take care of their animals, 2 dogs, 2 goats and like 3 or 4 horses, for 2 weeks. One of the dogs was really clingy, so I closed the door on him when I went to bed one night. I woke up in the middle of the night, but I was too tired to move, but I saw a black figure with a white face standing right beside the bed. It was making this horrific growling noise and leaned into me and pressed down on my chest. It pressed harder and harder and then I was able to move my fingers and then I was eventually able to move my body, but after that, I let the dog sleep in the room and I slept with the lights on. That was the first time I experienced sleep paralysis and thankfully the times after that one weren't freaky. I have always had hallucinations, primarily audio and visual ones. When I turned about 9 I started to be able to tell when it wasn't real. Just imagine up until then, when I was home alone at night the walls would breathe and people stomped around the house. I would carefully search the house for other people. But the walls breathing always scared me. Still see it every now and then, still creeps me out. It was a hot summer and my parents went to a wedding. I had a project to do, and it was like 1 AM and silent until a random drunk dude crawled in through my window with a bottle and blush face. I was 20 feet away at my desk from the window and we both just stared at each other. He was flustered and said, "Oh sorry there kid, wrong house," and attempts to leave the way he came. He was drunk and dizzy, so I helped him by pushing him out the window. I thoroughly shut it and stared at it for 2 hours until my parents came home. We lived outside a rural town and my mother always told my father not to leave me home unsupervised because it was a 20-minute drive from town if some accident were to occur. Anyway, my dad was a completely irresponsible parent, and so he ignored that advice and instead left me at home by myself at age 7. However, before he left to go back to a meeting he explained how to load and cack his 12-gauge shotgun under his bed with buckshot and told me if anyone comes to the door and tried to break in, shoot them. Fast forward a couple hours, my mother calls him and asks how everything is going. He says I'm home alone. She loses her mind and rushes out of work to come home and get me. In her rush she forgets her house keys. So she gets home and starts banging on the front door. I didn't hear her voice, and also being the obedient child I might go into my parents' room, load the gun, and bring it towards the door. I cack it, and I don't know if my mom heard it or what, but she suddenly stopped banging and yelled my name instead. It's probably the only reason she's alive today. I was really scared before I knew it was her, but I assumed my dad was smart and told me the right thing to do. Not completely home alone, it was myself and my younger siblings. I was working late one night and had told my brother and sister that when I got back we could order pizza. I got home at around 21:30 and walked through into the front room where they were sat waiting, both looking pretty confused. They told me they thought I'd already come home because they heard the front door open, followed by me running up to my room. Creepy enough. I had a quick check upstairs, nothing there, so proceeded to order the pizza. Now, I don't fully believe in ghosts. I've always thought that there could be something, but I'm the kind of person who has to have a logical reason for everything. Anyway, we are sat waiting for our food to arrive when one of our 3 dogs sits up with his ears pricked and essentially watches somebody walk into the room and sit in the empty armchair. Then, dog 2 of 3 starts growling, staring at the armchair. Dog 2 of 3 is a rescue and is very wary of people he doesn't know and was acting exactly how he would towards a stranger. Dog 3 then plods into the room chilled as anything and goes to jump into his favorite armchair. He gets to it and stops, staring directly at face level, as if somebody is sat there. At this point I'm sure you can imagine we are all freaking out. He just sits beside the chair growling, and he's definitely not comfortable with whatever's sat there. My siblings and I have all frozen. There's a horrible feeling in the room. We are all sat staring at the armchair on edge when the front door opens. My mum had come home early, and the dogs all run through to see her. I don't think I slept properly again in that house. This seemed to have tied in with a few other creepy things which happened, but I won't go into that here. I was laying in bed when the doorbell started ringing multiple times. I thought it was my cousins, because they do that a lot, so I stayed in bed, since I was lazy, and they do have keys to get in. After a few more minutes of ringing, I started to get paranoid and texted my family group chat. The ringing stopped, and I heard loud banging noises and the sound of wood being broken. I don't know why, but I got up to check it. The burglar saw me through our frosted glass on the door, yelled, "Shit," and ran away in his car. Got scared of being alone in the house for a while after. It was spooky movie night at a friend's and we were 3 movies deep, just finished watching Dark Skies. I was hungry, so I was like alright getting my leftovers, so I went downstairs by myself. When I closed the fridge I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, and when I turned to see what it was there was a ghostly white, skeletal thing just staring at me from outside the patio, with shimmering hazy lights pulsing behind it. I ducking freaked, dropped my food and run up the stairs nearly in tears babbling about someone or thing in the backyard. Turns out it was just my own reflection mixed with the lights and steam from the hot tub outside, but I've never been so scared in my life. Great movie though. My parents let me walk home from school alone when I was in 4th grade. In my now adult opinion, that's way too young. So I walk home from school. House is empty till about 5 when my parents get home. So I'm doing my usual routine, Mountain Dew Code Red, Doritos 3Ds, and Tuna Me on Cartoon Network. So I'm only home for about 3 minutes when I hear a knock at the door. 99% of the time I stay quiet and just wait for whoever to leave. But for whatever reason I actually go to the door and call out. Who is it? Stranger dude voice on the other side. Hey. It's your buddy Mike. I don't have a grown ass man buddy Mike. I'm in 4th grade. My sheet goes cold. Heart in my throat. Goosebumps. Cannot move, paralyzed, terrified. Dude says again, hey, open the door, we gotta go. And he jiggles the door handle really hard. Then he knocks again, bam bam bam. Jiggles the door handle hard again. I'm still like 1 foot away from the door. I actually never moved since all of this started because I didn't want him to hear my footsteps. After a minute of silence I heard a car door close and him drive away. I'm still freaked the duck out for the next hour. And worst thing was I was now super paranoid about walking to / from school because obviously he followed me that day and I had no idea I was being tailed. This happened when I was home with a friend in 7th or 8th grade. I was home first as I took the bus. My friend was over and we were doing homework in my room. We lived on a military base. All of a sudden, we heard the alert sirens. We went outside to check what it was. This what we heard. Active shooter on base. We ran upstairs and hid. Still scary. This didn't happen at my regular home, but I work as an EMT and our station is pretty much my second home. It was super late one night, and we had just gotten back from a crappy call. We were upstairs getting ready to go to bed when all of a sudden we heard the door open and close downstairs. There wasn't supposed to be anyone else there, so we went to investigate. We went down to the bay, checked all the rigs and rooms, no one was there. As we were getting ready to head back upstairs, the lights, siren, and backup alarms all started going off on the 2 ambulances that were in the bay. Mind you, the battery was turned off on the one and the keys were out of both ignitions. No matter what we tried, we couldn't get them to turn off until about 10 minutes later, when they just shut off on their own. Point to this day no one has an explanation for it. Our mechanic can't think of anything that would cause it, so it's a mystery. Our station is known to be haunted. On several occasions I've heard footsteps, had doors open and close, even saw shadow figures at one point, but that definitely takes the cake for scariest thing to happen there. There had been a scratching in my ceiling for a while, and my landlady was dragging her feet over having it looked into. One night, around 2 AM, the scratching became so bad it woke me up from a dead sleep. I tried to reassure myself that whatever it was, couldn't really get through to me, and I would be fine, until I could call my landlady the next day and really press the issue. Then some debris fell from my ceiling. Whatever was up there had managed to dig a small hole into my room. I screamed and heard some scurrying away from my approximate location. Grabbed any stuff I needed for the next day, got the duck out of there, shut the door tight behind me, and slept on the couch. I called my landlady first thing in the morning, and she had someone come while I was at work that day to check it out. A mama raccoon had managed to get her way into the space between the roof and my ceiling, and had given birth to a litter of kits. The guy speculated that the kits were getting old enough to start wrestling around, and that was likely what led to the hole in my ceiling. Luckily it was just small, the size of a quarter, so there weren't any angry raccoons hanging out in my room when I got home. They were able to safely trap and release the whole little family, but I still started hunting for new apartments as soon as possible. I move into my new place on May 1st. Congratulations, you reached the end of this awesome video. Now, like and subscribe, like we talked earlier, come on.